So if you've been keeping up with the news on comics, you'd know that IW is losing the license to Transformers and a bunch of Hasbro properties next year. It's been a hell of a ride with some bumps, controversial decisions, and some of the best moments of the franchise, but their Transformers comics have been some of the best I've ever read. It was my introduction to comics and remains one of my favourite pieces of media ever. Their original run ended back in 2018, lasting 13 years, the longest the franchise has ever had. They started a new one in 2019, but it wasn't as great. That deserves its own video, to be honest, but that's not the point of this. It killed my interest in comics about Transformers for a while. I did buy some every now and again, the one-off specials, but missing out on like the 84 prequel, which is just sad. But between all this, the new series, the crossovers, some announcement was made. They were going to do a Beast Wars revival. Beast Wars is a massive cornerstone of the Transformers franchise. Its revival in the 90s and is generally considered one of the best parts of it. But there hasn't really been a reboot of the original since it came out. There have been continuations, tie-ins, alternate universes, but no direct reboots. Elements from it have been brought into the continuities, but it's never been revisited, though recently it has been growing in popularity and prominence, most notably in the Kingdom line, which was released around the time this comic is coming out, and in the upcoming film they will feature prominently. This is the first piece to truly reimagine the whole franchise part. It began in 2020 and ended prematurely in 2022 before IW would lose the license. So, what do I think of it? Well, let's find out. I'm going to start with the things I like about the comic, before getting into criticism. I like the idea of the back-to-basics approach with the Season 1 cast and the two new female characters, Nyx and Scold. Their personalities are basic, but they feel rounded. I can't say most go through arcs aside from Scold, but even then that's very short. And that's just the Maximals and Predacons. There's like a crap ton of others like the Vok. Though speaking of Scold, if there's any character from this that should get a figure or reuse in future media, it's her. She deserves a toy in Legacy, and Hasbro should make it happen. The writing by Eric Burnham is great, with a fair lot of developments and setups, and the artwork by Josh Burcham is beautiful. It's very similar to Transformers Animated, capturing the personalities of the characters well, and being all around great. While he's the main artist, Winston Chan did a few issues as well, aside from Josh Burcham, and others contributed to the covers and several others to the annual. This is only one of two modern comics I can think of that actually had a letters page, the other one being the Immortal Hulk, and it's nice to actually have a letters page. It's nice to see fans with the artworks talking to the creators, and just getting the creators' vibes on stuff. Plus, they also publish character sheets in the back, so if you want to have references to how to draw them or how these look, you can, and it's always nice to have more of this stuff. I like seeing behind the scenes, and it's great that we get more insight into them. I like the fact we actually see Cybertron before they land on the planet they get to. The original cartoon basically just started them just on the ship crash landing, whereas this gives us like a preface before that. It's small, but it's nice, and I like that they included it, since the cartoon never did. Probably the biggest change I like is the fact the Vok actually have motives here and actually seem interesting. In the cartoon they were just in the background, showed up one episode and died, whereas in the comic here they're here from the start and manipulating things around the characters. They know that they've got experiments on the planet, and that they don't like the main Maximals and Predacons interfering in it. They hate them for that. And I like how they actually do stuff later on in the comic. They're not just a bunch of baddies who do nothing. They actually move the plot in many issues. Now, on to my criticism. Now, I just want to say that some of my criticism should be alleviated through the fact that the comic was cut short due to IW losing their license later this year, and want to wrap everything up on time. So certain characters, arcs and bits were altered to be cut short. The final issue is rushed, but that's expected this type. A bunch of this criticism is meant to be the long-term stuff, which I actually was angry with. It feels like parts of the comic are dragged out a little too long. That stuff like the first arc or the final bits were just either too short or too long, with the pacing just being awkward. It just means that a bunch of stuff happens and they just move on with it. A lot of characters who didn't show up in the show are just killed off quickly after they're introduced, like Polar Claw, Razor Beast, Saberback, and a bunch of the others. It's a shame since many of these could have been developed into unique one-off characters. Like, they introduced Razor Beast as this big character. They gave a big promotion before he showed up, and then he's killed off in just 2 issues. And it's not like for anything else, more or less progressed Scold and maybe showed Pterosaur's an asshole. But that's about it. Feels like they were wasting amazing potential, since you could have developed all the other characters with them, shown how they react to this. The annual feels like massive waste of potential. I don't think it's bad. Scold's story was alright. The story they had with Rhinox was okay. The Morphobots was my favourite. But they could have used it to develop the characters and world. Maybe show us the Beast Wars, which we don't really see much in this comic. Or show us how characters became who they were. Maybe show us why Optimal is leading the ship. You could have shown us how Megatron got to the position he's in, why he decided to do all this, or even how he recruited the others. But they don't. It just feels wasted when it could have done some more to explore this. Not that I hate it, but I just wish they did more with it. The cancellation of this and the other ongoing comic was a gut punch to me. This was pretty good and starting to go somewhere. There were plans for the future arcs, like Grimlock and the Dinobots showing up, more characters joining the actual ThinkCasts, and just a bunch of other interesting ideas that just don't go anywhere, that didn't happen. It's kind of sad to be honest, since I do feel this comic could have been something. Maybe not perfect, but definitely go up there with like the good stuff, and been a good continuation. But alas, like all good things, it has to end. Overall, I think I enjoyed this comic. It's not perfect, but in a time when all the other Transformers comics were either boring or crossovers, this is quite a breath of fresh air. If you're looking for a quick series that's good with a decent reinvention of a 90s brand, this will be okay. I hope we get a continuation of this someday, or maybe just the same writer and artist back on another series, since this was really well done.